So, of course, naturally, we can see these two teams in here with the lovely field colors, something we don't see nearly enough of.
Yeah, St. Clair get their green side, Cumberland get their red, and Arju gets the first goal. So it feels like Christmas, and Arju awarded the first present.
It is fairly Christmassy, and I think a present like that from Arju is always kind of nice. He's not the player you want behind the ball if you're the Cumberland defense when they're taking these shots, but he's probably going to be behind the ball on a lot of these shots. He's really been such a game changer. You take a team that is 2/3 the CRL defending world champions based on that last LAN appearance they made, and then add in Arju, arguably like one of the best collegiate players in all of Europe for Genoa, as he's going to make a nice save, and you have a deadly combination. But Cumberland, certainly no slouches either.
Yeah, because you consider this is also the last chance qualifier. These are teams that we're hyping up to be nearly the top of the collegiate echelon, yet they're at the final stage to qualify for LAN. So again, when we talk about the qualifying route here in the last chance, it has been a hard road. And of course, the last stop is as tough as it gets.
And I mean, as you mentioned, our second chance qualifier here, more or less, is going to be against, on the second leg, Northwood and Davenport, two teams that lost in the Midwest qualifier, the most direct way to qualify to Illinois State. So stuff like that really just pops out of nowhere and says, oh, wow, really, yeah, these teams can really just take a loss out of nowhere. And for the most part, it seems like Cumberland, they're not sitting down and taking a loss. They have a first goal, and ever since then, it seems like they're the ones asking a majority of the question, though St. Clair still remaining firm on the back line. And even though they might be diving in a bit too late on some of these challenges, another one goes back to their corner.
Yeah, Sai's going to do their best, though, to control this off the ceiling. Midfield challenge comes in quickly from Cumberland. They're doing their best to try to control the game after conceding the first one, and even gunning down the barrel of a St. Clair team who has won some recent CRL Opens, wants to gun in for this chance. You've got Arju with the Evo tag, who had highlights in the latest RLCS Major stream today. So that is the kind of talents that you were trying to get past.
And especially not going to be necessarily an impossible task. Plenty of teams have been able to do quite a lot against this team. The one thing I will say about St. Clair is that they're not necessarily a team that are going to 4-0 everyone they play, but they always find a way down the stretch to clutch it out. They are an incredibly clutch team based on how well they performed in the CRL ecosystem. So naturally, when it comes to CECC and these qualifiers, you'd expect the same level of class, but you never really know how these warm-ups go, if these guys are as warmed up as they possibly could be, or really if they have the game plan that they want to bring against Cumberland like they have in the past.
Tell you what, both teams looking warmed up, especially with a situation where Jazzy is slamming that ball in front for their team to score. But with no one having that finishing factor, Next shows off on the other end.
And I do like also Polar just bonking that last player. You don't really quite see it on the camera, but on the wide angle, if you're watching from the sidelines, you can see Polar immediately cut across. It's one thing that's actually really good about Cumberland. They're all incredibly mechanical. They all definitely have that star quality to be able to take the baton and lead the offense. But they're also not afraid of just saying, oh, you need one player to get bumped out of the way? Don't worry, I'll just chase them to the ends of the earth and we'll finally clear a path for you.
It's that off-the-ball play that is so pivotal sometimes, so impactful. Some players would call it cringe, but others know it's well ingrained in the meta, and it's not going anywhere. Arju has Jazzy to do just that onto Polar and repay the favor.
Well, some Cumberland fans might cringe at this for different reasons, but certainly it has something to do with the bump play. Poor Jazzy making Polar's life so difficult, and yet still gets a save, though. When you have two players crashing down the ball and you're coming from the inside of your goal trying to peek it out, it's just not really going to happen. Unfortunately, that is just an unsavable situation. That one less so, though, still took some doing.
Ooh, maybe strung along some palpitations as well in the heart there for Cumberland, but now in the heat of it, they are. Ball lost dangerously in front of their net. Next shows no issues, though, corralling that away. And Next was my star player. I was watch partying these teams on Tuesday to get to this point, and Next was everywhere. He has a freestyler history, but his mechanics seem to always be on display.
Something that I think it was Verge a while back tweeted out that he expects freestylers to be the next best competitive players, or at least have the highest potential, because they are already someone who grasps the most difficult part of the game in terms of mechanics, just about using them in kind of a decent way that doesn't really collide up and clog up the rotation within threes. I feel like Next is exactly the synthesis of everything he was talking about, especially in the collegiate scene. Though Jazzy, I mean, he's got some skills too, maybe not on the connection there. Looks like Polar doesn't want to get him to see that double tap off the ground.
Ooh, Sai decides to bring this to the ground. Arju picks up the remnants of it, and a challenge to the ceiling wins out for St. Clair as they keep Cumberland back on their own line. Next, trying to guard the backboard, but finds themselves on the wrong side.
It's a tough one from Knight there. I understand what he's going for. I think as he approaches, he wants to pinch it to the sideline, then realizes actually the St. Clair player there. So maybe if I just get underneath it, it'll pop up. I can chase it, but if you don't angle it right, it pops straight on out. And who else is going to jump on it than St. Clair? They're always there to make sure that if you make a mistake, it's going to the back of your net.
Definitely felt like the boost situation was getting worse and worse as well for Cumberland, and so St. Clair able to sniff that out and punish where necessary. PyroJ nearly gets ahead of that 50-50, but a couple more clears and it feels like the job is done in game one, at least, as this is best of 7. The battle may be nearly over for St. Clair, but the war far from done.
And even right now, this game, you know, can always be a little bit wily, especially with the goal near the end. Cumberland is no stranger to some clutch playmaking. They played against Concord within some championships within the CECC ecosystem already. They were not able to win that one, but they certainly gave them a run for their money at several clutch moments in this one. So I think St. Clair understands that. They're playing against the clock as much as their opponents, as they're going to take probably one of their last forays forward if they're not careful.
Oh, and PyroJ needed to be a little more careful there. Put it in Polar's breadbasket, but the follow-up shot just not enough. Naya, it's a soft touch that the defense handles well, and the defense handled this match pretty well when it comes to St. Clair, only conceding 1 in their win against Cumberland.
This LCQ game number 2 between St. Clair and Cumberland now underway, and explosively so.
Yeah, why not? A couple demos off the kickoff, and nearly a goal there for Nex. The one player we talked about getting into the fold, getting those goals. You talk about searching and finding the right kind of team, and Nex and Polar very much the team to do so, going from the Harrisburg with the TC third to now the Nightya third on Cumberland, and have done so well in their recent events. So a lot of top 8s in that high-level collegiate competition, and, well, just trying to be the top of the competition against the likes of St. Clair.
It has to feel so vindicating, especially when it comes to Polar. He's been kind of a journeyman. He came in, signed with Nichols, along with Pyros and K-Frost, and then he was able to then come across as he makes a save onto Harrisburg, thinking that's going to be it, but then him and Nex found that connection, saying, all right, well, this one isn't going to work out. Maybe let's try Cumberland to find Naya, and it just clicks. Already top 8 team in the country within CRL, making the national championship, and now they have a decent chance of going even further. Problem is, you got to get some clears. Eventually, it's going to be PyroJ.
It just feels like this waning pressure, this possession that is everlasting of St. Clair has worked Cumberland to their ends. It teased this rope to just fall apart. Those are the moments that St. Clair rise up and punish. Starting the game off right. Solid kickoff as well. Polar may be smart to play it slow, but eventually they need a touch on this ball. Nightya turns it around, rips the shot, and Polar can't find the goalie bump in time.
But I like that back pass. Sai steals it off his hood. That's all the way downfield. Luckily, Polar able to just doink that one back into the midfield. But my goodness, it's so explosive on this field. Every single time it looks like you even have a little bit of a gap you can open up into, it gets closed. And even worse, it might get countered immediately. Speaking of, weird deflection of Polar. He doesn't need a lot of boost to hit the double. No siree, 1-1.
There it is. The equalizer is here for Cumberland. Polar beats side to the ball. No boost. Well, maybe just remnants. Just an ounce to get them to that downward shot.
And I love those setups because it really did have to be like that. He jumped with that for basically 20 boosts. So you have enough to get to the ball, and after that, it's just pure momentum. You're hoping your just inertia is great enough, and Cumberland's hoping that their inertia can at least take them through a defender or two. There's one demo from Polar. Problem is the second player, Jazzy, ready for that touch, as Cumberland understands that they've answered back, they've reset everything, and it's just about making sure you stay aggressive without being too reckless. Speaking of, 2 players for St. Clair around that last one. Luckily, that is not on target.
Things get a little scary, but they'll get a little less hairy now. The Nex is off the field with that demolition. Strong redirect towards the net. Follow up there. Sends a bullet from PyroJ off the corner. At the pace of the play, and this ball will not slow. 5th gear, full tilt across the field. And including in that is the shot from Nex.
I wasn't even sure if this was on purpose. I saw Knight come in. I'm thinking, well, that is shootable. But no, he leans around it, and then at the last minute, tilts his car forward, gets the extra power. Nex knows he doesn't actually have to blast this one. No one on St. Clair ready for it. That's the vision that I'm looking for from Cumberland. They're all really mechanical, but what makes all good teams great is plays like that.
Yeah, the teamwork coming through, and the cherry on top for me is they're activating Nex, right? Again, that's your striker that is going to send maybe the best shot quality. Nothing, absolutely, to take away from Polar and Nightya, but again, having watched their qualifier run to this final spot back in Tuesday, Nex was their star striker. Maybe not their star savior, though. He ends up behind the play this time.
Has one of those awkward timing moments. Nex is moving forward, realizes he doesn't have the boost. Okay, I can get the boost there. All right, Arju's already beaten me. Knight is turning around because he knows Nex has it, and suddenly he doesn't know anything because the ball is right past, and it's just that awkward moment. Of course, St. Clair is not going to be sitting around. They're not going to question why the rotation's out of whack. They're just going to score regardless. A little bit of a giveaway. Got to be tilting, but nothing to really be able to throw your controller over. Just resetting everything back to neutral. Maybe not for long, though. Jazzy sniffing around the back post, but he's not quick enough.
And now we're getting to the point where St. Clair Green are going to be a little upset they're not scoring on some of these endeavors. A lot of shaky situations here for Cumberland on their own goal line, but be happy to survive that time around. Nex defeated by his side, despite the boost diff being in Nex's favor. Side just gets the better of that 50-50. Sometimes it's what you do on those challenges, whether you have boost or not.
Jazzy so early for that. I don't think he has another touch, but that's exactly why Arju just comes screaming on in from the back line. Sent right forward again by Nex. Might actually find its way to Knight, looking for Nex for the connection again, but even he doesn't want to jump for this one. The ideas are there from Cumberland, but not necessarily in the execution. They're not even getting those demos. Maybe they just go for the finesse instead. Clever touch by Nex, but it's still going to run to the wall on that near post.
Polar might have had it even after the bump, but that's not the case. Arju sends the shot towards the net, and now here comes the tic-tac-toe for Cumberland. They're working Broadway Street. Almost the last pass ends up in the shot, but instead it gets away from them. Polar with the challenge up the ceiling, and this could provide fruits of their labor. Possession leaning towards Cumberland now, favoring them, which is definitely a different spot compared to their last game where St. Clair won.
One thing I'm noticing about Polar is how often he's on zero boost, and yet it doesn't affect him. He still takes a good angle. He's just great with positioning. He's a smart player, and it's certainly helping to lock in St. Clair. Problem is, on the defense, you got to do the same thing. Kind of awkward jump, minimal boost from Cumberland as Nex picks up the corner boost, but it's not even able to get that read off. Kind of an awkward ending to game number 2, right, as you can tell, and maybe the nerves are just going to start picking up. Sweaty controllers could lead to missed inputs. Doesn't seem to be the case for St. Clair. They're strategically building up, looking for bumps, but not getting the fake.
I almost thought that Jazzy was going for the sidewall. It ends up in the give and go that kind of presents no results. Arju, just a demon in the corner, beating out Nightya to that ball, following up with the demolition. It is truly demon mode for him. And now Jazzy weathering the bumps, slow play on the ball. Maybe in this final 10 seconds, St. Clair finds something towards the net, but the ball's stuck like glue to the wall. No one can rip it off, whether it moves from east to west or wherever. This ball nearly killed for overtime. One last effort from Nex will reach the ground.
And that was even a weird bounce off the corner. I thought that might have been a bounce out, and you can tell St. Clair didn't want to take the chance. It just cushions it down, and now after that pinball of a kickoff, we actually have Nex in space. That's the last thing St. Clair wants. He's past one. He stands it past everybody. The air dribble bump connects. Cumberland to get a game back. Now it's just about continuing to apply that in game 3.
I want them to be resilient as well. They're really hanging with the squad, but like you said, there's those awkward moments. They just kind of get panicky on their own defensive line. They'll prioritize boost over ball, and the communication doesn't seem to be there. This one, I don't think they ever got set from the beginning.
Yeah, it's a tough one, specifically because Sai wants to carry through on this one. He gets the boost and then immediately dives down and actually gets the pass almost. It looked like he almost got the deflection, or at least threatened it enough to deflect off the defender. Either way, certainly something that Cumberland realizes, oh, so there's not a singular second we can let down our guard. Otherwise, they're just going to pull out something weird like that, or maybe immediate like this. I was a little bit worried, but looks like Polar is able to get that deflection.
Yeah, it's as if not only on the possessions of St. Clair, you have to be purely disciplined in your defensive rotation, but yeah, on the kickoff too. In fact, that's the most dangerous moment. However, the double demolition followed with the read off the ground from Polar gets them across the field and in.
It's like a dodgeball tactic. You lob the ball up high, everyone looks to the sky, and your ball cam cannot detect the heat-seeking missile that is coming straight for you. Nex won the game with a bump, and this time he's tied up this one inadvertently for getting rid of a defender. Being able to take care of everything on the ground sometimes is all you really need. You just need to be able to have that path cleared, or you just be Jazzy going straight down the middle with a flip reset, though not quite powerful enough.
Powerful, not damaging enough the way that double demolition was. Like you said, many of these players as mechanical as the next, but you gotta kind of just move on. Bump cars, clear the path. Almost a path for that corner shot from PyroJ. Saved there by Polar. Extra space once again, but closing the gap is St. Clair. That's part of their win condition, cutting down on that space that Nex is trying to present.
And now Nex has found his way out. Problem is he can only find a Knight with minimal boost. Sai able to cut on in on this one. Nex looks like he is confident enough to challenge. Knight with a corner booster, then a side boost, attempted stealing. He's going to get demoed, and that's probably the only reason Cumberland isn't marching forward a bit more confidently. You can see their moments where maybe their eyes start to shimmer a bit. They get a little bit over-eager. They have an attack going, and St. Clair is able to just swipe it away and continue to put weird balls in. He has to double that one off his ground on his own half just to be able to get it somewhat out of his half.
Surprised the double came through. They were taking advantage of Nex first touch being a little too far away from them, but then they converted it into that double tap, presenting nearly the shot chance on the follow-up. That's the thing about playing against St. Clair. You make one little mistake, the touch goes a little too far, and then all of a sudden they're dunking in your face. Nex tries to keep that space close between him and the ball. That touch though goes out to Sai. He's got 50 in the tank to send to Jazzy.
Polar trying to test PyroJ, and that's going to be really confusing as no one touches the read, but leaning over backwards, I suppose you should get a bit more strategic, but maybe you should get a bit more violent, at least if you're Jazzy. Off-ball demo means that he is able to go on forward, though, as always, I always love to compliment Polar. We don't say as much about him always, but positionally, he is such a staple in this rotation, constantly shutting down a lot of these St. Clair attacks.
Jazzy on the backboard position there is going to find clearance across the field. Sai just getting beat there from the mark from Polar. PyroJ, wave dash, just a little extra speed, wants to be centered instead. The ball flies free after the demolition. These bumps and demos have presented opportunities to either team, but in that case, it kind of just stalled the play. Put a pause in the attack for Cumberland to regain.
That's a tough read for Sai, which means PyroJ is going to have to be called into action, but so is Polar. That's actually a hefty one right into Nex. He's going to call off Nightya, though I think at both times they were going for it. I don't think there was really a clear path forward, which is why you got to forge a new one. Maybe off the corner, though Knight's going to turn around. That's an open net. Nex needs to get back. No more boost. The last of it, he gets one save. Where's a second? Drop down into Sai. It's a brilliant touch away by Nightya to keep things clear, at least for now. One more time, Polar. You got to touch it. He simply cannot.
The interference was there on the infield passing, but at a certain point, you've been exacerbated. Nex gets the car instead of the ball, and Sai just has to tap it down.
It's one of those moments, you talked about it earlier, the boost conservation is so difficult for Cumberland is not only are St. Clair going through threatening demos, they're also, I would say, pretty organized, but something went wrong. A miscommunication, disconnected controller. All I know is it doesn't get easier than that.
Oh no! I don't hate the strategy, but boy, when it burns you, it looks bad. Kickoff tactics get wilder and wilder every day, Taco.
I think that was a moment where they expected Nex to not read that in time, but I think he might have turned off a bit too quick, or maybe they predicted the fake because the player in the back wasn't moving. And so Nex was saying, I'm not going to jump into this. I'm just going to plow through and see what happens. And St. Clair just got to throw your hands up, you laugh, you're like, all right, well, next time we got to disguise that maybe a little bit better, but either way, we've seen several times now where a team gets a goal and then immediately gets wiped out. Maybe they can get one back. Jazzy from the ceiling with his own double off the post and denied.
No, Jazzy's just going to be so frustrated that didn't go in. They basically got a gimme with the bump, having them lunged into that position. Now, in this case, Sai, after peeling off the play, had an open look instead. So at this point for St. Clair, it's about corralling in the space where they can score from these elbow shots. And for Cumberland, it's about sending it across the midfield. Offensive rotating attackers there from St. Clair. In this case, they do find a little bit of space. Sai makes a near save off the post, and that follow just not good enough.
Big fan of how Cumberland are communicating. A couple times now I've been seeing it. They're sending the player on the ground to challenge any air dribble, as PyroJ doesn't really care. He's just going to go for pogo. Why not? You know what? You have that much confidence. It's not necessarily if you can score, just if you have enough space, if anything. Jazzy from a near post. Clever beat, and that's the lead.
You get the feeling when there's pogos, a team has a certain amount of confidence that they're going to find a way to score. They were the earliest to these challenges. It just set up Jazzy for success, and Cumberland, you got to find maybe a kickoff goal like you did earlier or something in the next 23.
And they're doing very well shutting down pretty much all the expected avenues. I feel like a couple times they've been kind of shutting down St. Clair so cleverly. And then when you see the really unconventional ones, those are the ones that get through. Other than that, they just go for speed or suffocation on these rotations. Either way, seems like Cumberland, they're gasping for air, just trying to stay alive in this one. They're going to miss a crucial clear. Now with that one, I don't know if they have enough time to get forward, especially with St. Clair, making sure this has to go coast to coast next. Beating on the aerial, Polar trying to tap it up. He's getting harassed. Knight is trying to keep it around, and even with that flick, I think Arju has that one red. Sai most likely going to try to spike that down, but I suppose they like to live dangerously, Pyro.
Why not? Front flick there from Naya. And, oh, he's the one with the boost to catch the ball. At a certain point, you got to feel like we're in purgatory. No matter what, Cumberland are headed down under.
You're going to need a lot more than just the meager minute, it feels like, to come up with a worthwhile response. But maybe they did. Who knows how Cumberland and Coach Claypool are going to work.
Who knows? Maybe they'll get another kickoff goal to almost package to them for free. But as we get into game number 4, it's important for Cumberland to respond effectively and early. This one from Sai left for Arju. Jazzy plays instead for possession, but Cumberland learning that each game presents its new threats from St. Clair.
They're going for the flip reset into what looked like almost like a Mactive, not catch, but like a spike down. I don't even know how they set that one up, but I don't question it. It all works for St. Clair in the end, and maybe not on every attack, but they're certainly getting creative with it. That would be a crazy dish. Where is that offense? Arju going all by himself from 0 angle, post in.
Wait, this is a ridiculous angle. I can't imagine any of my teammates in rank, which doesn't matter anyway. It's not even close to these players getting that angle, but that is lovely from Arju. The absence of defenders, he had to score.
That's a bit of a weird one for Cumberland, is everyone was kind of splayed out to the wind. They didn't really know where they needed to be, and maybe St. Clair doesn't either. Off the kickoff, that's a lead block. Next dances past one, but also collides quickly and briefly with the post. So still going to be something that St. Clair can deal with for the most part, as a little fake coming in. I think Jazzy completely sent Nex flying.
Well, Nex is now their lead blocker, but in order for that to be effective, Polar has to get past the first. Instead, these early aerial challenges have been incredibly effective for St. Clair. I think Cumberland have done a great job with space and time in the air, but that's just not been provided, and it won't be provided on this shot for Arju.
Poor Polar's coming back with no boost. You're thinking, oh, what's the odds Sai's going to shoot that? Well, he's not. He will pass it, though. Jazzy misses over the top. That's actually the best possible option, because that shot was covered. The pass on the backboard was not. Arju going to reap another one, shooting 66% on this game, and really, he's no mystery to that type of efficiency for this roster.
Not whatsoever. And one thing I'm noticing about St. Clair is they normally prioritize that follow-up effort, that secondary one, because more than likely your team's comms are crisp, and more than likely Cumberland are trying to save that first shot. You've got most of your goals from pressure, long possessions, and that follow-up chance is going to be quite open. Or the first one. Why not? Doomsday dish for Jazzy.
And sometimes you just get scooped up, especially when Polar is fighting on 0 boost, also getting bumped, also going backwards, also not being able to collect any pads on the way. You could just make a list of the worst possible scenarios and type of bewilderment that could befall you, and it would pretty much be that last play, but I don't think it's really going to hurt them too much, at least if they get a free gift here. I'm going to say not necessarily this is a game you need to write off, but 3 goals in the first 2 minutes here is one thing, but maybe cutting it back to 2 is a whole other.
Yeah, this is one of those plays once again for St. Clair that I don't know if they'll try again, but I didn't think they would after the last game's mishap, so here we are. But even for Cumberland, it's not necessarily a confidence boost. Yeah, you kind of thread the needle there, good quick reaction, but maybe you need a solid play out of Nex, like that one from the ceiling. Follow-up shot from Naya does find Arju. And now Cumberland starting to ask for a little more respect from the defense of St. Clair. It's off the backboard again, and Naya barred down and in.
I would say St. Clair-esque based on how a lot of these goals are going in, but I love this. The cherry picker by Polar puts it perfectly on the backboard. Where have we seen that before? But even better than that, Knight still has to make sure that goes in. It might be flailing, but those are 2 defenders in net. You put it anywhere else, probably not going on in. Cumberland slowly clawing their way back after a really rough start, but that's exactly why we always preach. It is not how you start these games. It really is how you finish.
And that's the story for Cumberland every single game. Just when you think St. Clair are out of the woods, instead they're in the thick of it. That's Polar there, contesting the ball in the corner. Actually, everybody from Cumberland. It's a little bit of a family gathering here, a reunion, just to give someone the ball, have someone toss the rock across. Be able to do that with the demolition. Following up on that smoke screen is Nightya. Take the ball to the infield, trying to get the bump across as well. Next barrels in for the shot. That's denied. St. Clair look a little spread out on defense, and Cumberland opportune to pounce, but that shot just won't make it.
Yeah, Arju squinting his eyes a little bit, saying, wait a minute, I know where this is going. Pretty much man-marking Nex in the midfield to block out that pass. And really the only reason that's not an open shot. So despite Cumberland trying to find that clever way through, can't quite do it. Maybe off a deflection, how about Polar with a demo to lead the way. Nightya looking through the smoke, but he can't beat out Arju. Way farther away from the read. He can't beat him on the second attempt, though. That's why Sai is also backing things up. I think St. Clair, kind of the alarm bell is starting to signal a bit. They need to tighten up on defense. You can almost smell Cumberland getting closer and closer.
It's like they're an army running out of reinforcements. Is Arju the last flank remaining here as he makes the save on low boost? Maybe not. Jazzy had no boost, but is there on the backboard. Oh, I knew the redirect was coming, and I thought it would go in. Nightya will make sure that ball finds its destination.
Well, you're seeing exactly why 3v3 is a full team game. Everybody involved on this one to just keep the ball in a dangerous area. Arju does his job. He gets the save, but sometimes you need to do extra duty, pull a little overtime, and get a second. He could not recover in time, and after being down 3-0 about honestly 90 seconds ago, we are suddenly looking at a tie score. St. Clair might be sitting a little bit further forward in their seats into the true gamer position.
Yeah, you talk about squinting their eyes. They're making sure they see every pixel on that monitor. Hate to say it, but this comeback all started from that goofy kickoff, the same one that could have been cleaned up from the last game. Maybe creative ways in Rocket League aren't the route. It's standard gameplay from here on out for St. Clair. That's
a difficult part of kind of this creative kickoffs. A lot of them regard trying to get in a feint or some sort of misdirection, but there is always an avenue where if someone just doesn't want to play by your rules and just hits it slightly differently, yeah, you can't just give up a free goal, and that's twice now. Maybe something to consider. Might not seem like a huge factor in the grand scheme of things, but 1 or 2 goals can decide games, can decide a whole entire series. I think both these teams are acutely aware of that, which is why they do not want Sai going through uncontested. Another block, and we're back to mid.
Feel like the second to St. Clair get the balance on their side, another demo comes in for Cumberland, clearing the path ahead. And that's exactly what sparks the counterattack, completed by Nex.
I love the finish on this one. Look, Sai misses that touch off the backboard. Arju's on the left side, so is Sai. The only place you can put that without the recovery save is exactly where he did. Next, showing that striker mentality we have touched on. He might be the flashiest player, but also necessarily one that has to be called into defense in weird situations. 4 players committing on that last kickoff, and maybe it's exactly what the doctor ordered. Nightya, weird read. Arju, slap down, no shot. It's into Sai off the post, off the other post. Cumberland somehow gonna be surviving that onslaught. What an ending to a spectacular comeback. For the most part, they are able to take down any team, but they do have a tendency occasionally to take the foot off the gas. Maybe they need to reapply that with a lead foot in this next one.
Listen, everyone's looking to take their foot, that step closer to Texas. That's what this is all about. The long road this week to get to CECC May Madness. Both teams now halfway done with that journey.
For some teams, they don't really have too many options, especially for Cumberland. This is the second time they're in a grand final that actually does result in a qualification spot. So to be able to drop one opportunity against Concord in the South Regional and then eventually go to this one and again lose, I mean, that'd be brutal, especially for a team that is trying not to just play second fiddle to these top teams. They want to prove that they're among the best of the best. And I say if you want that type of competition, this is more or less the exact team you'd want to play against to be able to prove your own quality.
Yeah, if you like recency bias, both these teams top 4 in the last CRL Open. And yeah, that Taco, that one goes in.
That one made me almost fall out of my chair. I'm not really sure what happened here. Sai did get a bump, respectively, but that is a difficult finish. It looked a bit more awkward, but I think when you kind of zoom on in, that's a pretty graceful way to recover. Really anything he could do except for that exact touch. And despite all that, Cumberland just going to have to shake their heads and say, sure, I guess that one's just going to go right on in.
I feel bad for Polar. I mean, it was positioned on the goal line. Nearly expected the shot from St. Clair. Just couldn't make the stop, got caught too far forward, and sometimes that is the case for Cumberland. A lot of the successes of St. Clair have been from that possession and pressure, and just culminating in that balance of, am I too far forward, am I too far behind, and Cumberland struggling to toe that line.
PyroJ off the ceiling, trying to get the reset. He might also still fall. You can see Knight just kind of staring, saying, please, someone else challenge. From my angle, I have no idea. And maybe Jazz doesn't have any idea on this one from Polar. I think he's trying to catch it on the reset. He's going to fail at that. So here comes the green side again next. Needs a catch, and he does get it. Definitely a very methodical approach on defense from both sides to start this game.
Indeed it is. And Knight is going to leave that for the other team. Cumberland seemed anchored on their own red end. Seemingly no problem with it. They smell blood in the water. It's from their side, and they're ready to get a bit ravenous on the green end. Jazzy, though, doesn't mind. Enjoys taking the time on that ball. Almost a flip reset double from the corner. Missed the second touch. PyroJ sends it right to mid for side. A double tap. That's right past the defense and in.
That's one of those awkward moments. If you're watching Polo throughout this play, he's in the midfield. He realizes Next does not have it. He tries to reverse an aerial, but the moment Sai gets that first touch, it's on target, and you know it's going to be in. Sai is always going to deliver on that one, much like Polar was earlier on in the series. Right at halftime, St. Clair seeming like they're doing a similar performance last game. This time it's just about not giving up the lead. A fake from Polar might not be what they needed in that moment. It's not going to work out. This is the final third player, not able to put the hammer down. Maybe try number two with an air dribble bump. Also, not quite going to connect in the way that they intended.
I think Cumberland are going to be a little upset. They're going to feel like they were owed that kickoff goal. I mean, they got one in the last 2 games each. And St. Clair, you're not going to give them that one either? Come on now. Instead, St. Clair want to undo their mistakes, pull out the eraser and sharpen the pencil right down and tack on the tally for more shots and goals.
The St. Clair directors in their ears saying, remember, we are not running a charity. This is a private university. We have to step this up a little bit. So let's make sure that we do get these saves away and not give up anything easy off the kickoff or off the backboard. But PyroJ didn't get that memo. He's going to miss the first one. Does not on the second. Next is looking for a demo, but the shot never even came in.
Next does grab that boost, so ask for Polar to enter the fold instead. PyroJ a nice catch and has no opportunity to release. There's already pressure from Nightya on that side, while PyroJ delicately offset above 2 defenders, and now the Polar sent away. Sai has time. Flip reset in the air, wants to activate another reset off the post, nearly in, but couldn't single-handedly do it.
And whenever these players are wondering, wait, why are people just diving at the ball constantly? It's because if you don't shut it down, it might happen like that. A double flip reset off your post and in, and even also got the dish if you had maybe a bit more boost in the tank. But regardless if that doesn't go in or not, doesn't really matter from St. Clair's perspective. 2 goals is enough to win, though maybe not enough to feel comfortable, particularly after how the last game ended. Off a deflection, 0 boost. Now you're just going to go for the bump, and Next goes forward with full confidence, but now he's going to have to retreat back in a bit of a panic.
At a certain point, you got to risk it, and that's what Knight is doing, flying from the sidewall, looking for a ball touch, maybe even a demolition, a bump, trying to take out St. Clair before they do something like this. Likely the nail in the coffin to give St. Clair their lead in the series.
Nice clean touch from Sai, and he also knows that he doesn't actually have to get a particular touch. He just knows as long as it gets past that first defender, more or less an open net, and that's exactly what it is. Hat trick for Sai, a player that has stepped up at times throughout this series, but definitely throwing it down on this game number 5, trying to take the lead right back. PyroJ wants in some fun. They don't want to just tick down the clock. They want this to be a morale-boosting win.
It's part of why you see St. Clair with the gold trophy at the end of the tournament, and so many of them, because they have a way of dictating the pace and the control in a game. How many times do we see that scoreboard and Cumberland have less than 5 shots? I mean, this time around they have 3. That's almost non-existent, especially against a team where you concede 4 goals. Statistically impossible to score that many. And Taco, don't start with me about how you can score a goal without having a shot registered, okay? I know, it happens sometimes.
Sometimes you gotta force those own goals, and some people have a power for that, but I don't know if any competitive players really fall for that in the same way. PyroJ not even to give up a last one, so indeed, it's gonna be St. Clair, I would say, righting the ship somewhat. A really rough loss to take in the previous game, and an incredibly dominant one, maybe the way that they intended in the first time. Sai, you know what? There's a shot without him actually technically getting a statistic on.
That's right. Sai had 5 shots registered earlier and will still on his now 4th goal. So there you go, Taco. Someone else that has a knack for forcing own goals as St. Clair go up in the series 3-2. 1 game away from, going to Texas. No big deal. I don't know if I saw in particular the card change. I just want to see that save off the kickoff. Cumberland, I feel like the most important thing is to come out the gate strong because that is a scoreless game. Yes, you conceded 4 goals, but you also found nothing on the other side. I guess realistically 3 because they let that last one in, but the point remains. They're looking for points on the board.
Polar flick that one high. Next will be able to get a deflection at the very least, as every single time it seems like St. Clair, they don't even look like they're in the best of positions, but then they just find their way all the way through, kind of like Arju, not getting the read he looks for, but it still lands its way onto Sai's bumper. Not able to pick out that back post, maybe try number 2, 3-man weave yet again. Jazzy from an angle, Polar, no boost, straight to the ceiling, double commits, pandemonium in the backfield. No end result for St. Clair. They're playing with their food, but you still gotta put it on target. Another rejection, this time from the bar.
Bar putting in work. Not necessarily in overtime, but that's certainly what it feels like. St. Clair, they're not quite done. Nearly the bar again as Next finds the save. Follow-up shot is there. Polar utilizing nearly every ounce of boost. Make that save. Here comes Next now, looking for an outlet. Tries to find the escape rope for their team. They've got to get out of this dungeon, and they got to do it quick.
Sai. The air dribble, misses the reset. I think Knight sensed that one, and now he's going to sense a card just ramming the backside, putting him out of position. Gonna have to rely on Polar to get this one back. Late challenge from Sai, and yet he still is able to get a majority of that read. Polar leaves with no boost, and Cumberland again kind of searching for those clever setups, clever touches, and they're really not able to get on. It seems like St. Clair, for the most part, has everything covered, especially here with Arju. Last defender back, still escapes 1, dribbles past a second, and now with the lead blocker, he might have the goal to shoot at. Next going backwards, simply cannot get the save.
Here, the dude, it was activated. It was on. But
Find the composure, the wherewithal to get away from the violence.
Being able to notice those moments where it says, okay, first man has it. Oh, he doesn't. Oh, well, second does. Oh, he also doesn't have it. And then by the time you look at the third, they're already getting abused. Speaking of the first man, though, Cumberland not able to dive on top of that one before St. Clair gets the save around all the way on the far side. That double connected. Maybe we see a second, but no, on we play. Cumberland's pain will be a little stalled out. Maybe somewhat numbed if that one went in, but of course, Zarju also doing his defensive duties.
Polar with the midfield play, drops down, tries to get the touch across. It's Nightya instead. Jazzy inside, nearly double committing on that play. Rounding around the corner, Polar without boost, but yet there's a glowing container in their corner that they couldn't pick up. Next will grab it instead. Naya with Next, shot off the backboard. Polar wants to dive in for the shot, but Arju dives and saves.
Love the awareness from Arju. He doesn't just really just stands up and kind of square up for that read. He immediately goes to the back post because he knows, I know Polar's good enough to be able to pinpoint that back post shot, so I'm going to get it to the side. But how many times has that also really been the case as we go further and further into this series? All the way to the goal line. It looks like there's no way that can't go out, and yet St. Clair just managed to save anyway.
I'll tell you what, there's one thing different about this Cumberland team is they know they got to leave it all out on the field if they're going to go down in this game. To St. Clair, only 3 shots in the last game, already 8, equaling their opponents in this one. Arju is forced to make yet another save against this Cumberland attack.
Jazzy was really high on that read, but it's actually better because that's exactly where Next was going with it. Nightya tries to go the direct path as well, chasing it down, but there's another 2 players going down. Next fighting for his life on the goal line.
Oh.
It's still going to do enough to delay, but on the back post, Arju is essentially guaranteed.
This feels like gym class or recess bullying. Next had no boost, no ability to get out. Calling for help, waving the flag. No one comes to the assistance in time.
And sometimes it really just looks like on the dribble, St. Clair's almost turtling up because they know Cumberland is driving as fast as possible. The biggest issue with playing that fast is when you take a 50, it's going to slam against cars and bounce crazily far away. So sometimes the better strategy is just slow down and take that abuse, or at least don't play off the immediate flick. St. Clair's done that twice now, and it's resulted in breakaways. So I don't really know if Cumberland knows that's their best strategy, but at a certain point, you have to keep the accelerator down because you have a minute and 2 goals to cover. Otherwise, you're going to miss out on that land qualification spot.
You're not going to get a kickoff either. Those aren't arriving. Not anymore. Instead, it's just Sai in the midfield, putting a stop to the transition ways here of Cumberland. They cannot get across the field. Stampeded at every effort. Sai wanted to go for boost. Had to turn in the nick of time to get the save. Manages to do so.
Pass into Polar, but Sai saw it coming immediately. He's so literate all the way down the field, off the post, and completing the hat trick is RG certainly putting a cap on this one.
These two teams met twice in CRL Opens 2 and 3, and well, St. Clair only was defeated in 1 game against Cumberland. Cumberland may be exceeding expectations with 2 games off them this time around, but it feels like the red carpet now rolled out for a dominant St. Clair green team that is nearing that CECC qual.
Of course, a team that everyone kind of felt was destined, but of course they are theatrical. They love to take the more entertaining route along these series. Certainly a team you'd expect to be at the end, or in a manner such as this, in the biggest collegiate event all year. But no, it's gonna be them just doing it a little bit clunkily, but still in 6 games. GG's to Cumberland. Better luck next time.